Hey Mo, Happy New
Hey,
Year.
Ricky.
Happy New Year.
Oh, it is a happy new year. I'm happy to see your face, happy to see everybody on Facebook, and happy that the doctor is in.
Doctor is in, and this is going to be the coolest show ever. I'm so excited.
Okay. Well, I think we're all thinking about getting our houses in order. I know a lot of people clean right before the new year. People go on all kinds of diets and cleanses and join the gym and do all sorts of things at the beginning of the year. But this conversation is one that everybody should be thinking about having and
Yep.
talking with their family members, and put it on your radar, put a pin in it and circle back to it even 6 months later, because we have got to get our houses in order.
Yep. All and across the board, sick or not sick, right? Disease or no disease. This is like so important, so important. And it's making me like, oh my gosh, but I wore this shirt today because and I got my mug because we're gonna get some shit done today, right? And make your list of what you got to do. All right. So we have this incredible guest who I just met about a month ago, and she's friends with our bestie Latoya. And when I met her, I was like, "You got to come on our show. You got to talk about this." So Nany, introduce yourself.
Yes. Hi, Ricky. Hi, Dr. Mo. Thank you guys so much for inviting me. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Nany Conde. I am a physician assistant. I've worked as a hospitalist physician assistant and now currently in the emergency department. I'm also a licensed financial professional. I'm a registered Social Security analyst and a life and health insurance producer in multiple states. And I just love financial literacy, love healthcare literacy. And to combine my two passions, I created a company called Health and Wealth with Nany, which is based on education, healthcare literacy, and financial literacy.
Wow, wow, like that's one of those things is a lot. Okay, so healthcare literacy and
Right.
financial, like, oh
I
my
was
goodness,
going to say, you went
I
from
know.
being a PA, and not that you're not still, but all that training to realize that something was missing. Tell me a little bit about that transition, right? Because you're going from working in healthcare and doing the delivery side of things to really now doing something totally different but related and really necessary.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think my career in finance was born from my career in healthcare and from my own personal experience. About 10 years ago, I lost my mom. She was terminally ill, and I had to take off 6 months to take care of her for long term care needs. And that experience personally, and also what I had experienced in the hospital with patients, in as much as we don't try to carry patient stories with us, sometimes we have to. You can just shut your mind when you go home. So there were so many stories that you hear. Financial stress literally is killing people. We've got high blood pressures and cancers and so many different things where financial stress, people come in there talking about money issues and lack of planning, lack of knowledge. So with my own being on the other side as a caregiver and, seeing what I deal with as a provider and a caregiver when I was introduced to the financial industry and was able to see the solutions, I just literally, I fell in love with the process of educating because we can prevent these things. There are solutions out there, but many of us don't know. So out of my own ignorance, really, that's what led me to help other people. But as I learn, I educate. As I learn, I educate.
Wow,
Lifelong learner.
wow,
Wow.
I love it. But you don't even know what your insurance is all about until you get sick. Like you sign up, you get the health. So people who have insurance, they sign up with their corporation or whatever, wherever they work, but then all of a sudden they get sick. And guess what? The copay that was $30 is now $200, or the surgery wasn't included in the thing, and that this wasn't included there, and that's you got to pay this percent of that. And it's like, how did this? You have no idea what you're in, and now you're sick. You got to get treatment, and you got to make decisions about can you pay for your meds or buy food for your kids.
Absolutely.
So like, how do
Absolutely.
you do that? And
Yeah.
stuck in this position where you really can't even make the choices. You're not equipped to do it. but I mean, it's almost like, where do we start? Like, where do we start this? I'm so confused already. Like, where do you start?
Let's do it. Let's get right into it, because
Yeah.
everybody has that same question, whether you have an illness or even if you don't, you don't realize, like Ricky said, what your insurance is and can do, and whether or not you got the right plan and how to navigate all of this until it happens. And then you're already overwhelmed with other things in life. So where do people start if they want to start the new year off right?
All right. Well, I will tell you where I started.
Okay, that works.
Go over the process that I went through that really made me see the importance of what I needed to do. I actually was at work one day talking to a colleague of mine of all the stress I was going through, and she introduced me to a financial literacy campaign that's actually going on. And I went there, they sat me down and did a personal financial strategy. I had never seen anything like it. A financial needs analysis, talked about my assets, liabilities, income, bills, discretionary spending, how much is left? Because I may want to do things, but do I have anything left over, to do any type of insurance policies? Then on that form, my financial goals, short-term goals, less than 1 year goal, 1 to 5 year goal, midterm, and then long-term goals, 5 year plus goals. Then also they asked me about my insurable need. I had never heard of that. Insurable need, what does that mean? And basically all of us have a human value to our families. So my income is my human value. That's what covers the mortgage and everything else that I do for my kids. So if that income is not there, what is going to replace that? So then there's actually a formula. It's called the dime method. So you calculate your debt. Even though I'm gone, my debt still remains. My family is liable for that. Whoever inherits my assets will inherit my liabilities. My income, 10 times my income, because my last child was 1 year old at the time. Ideally, you want to leave at least 10 years worth of income so that your children will be of age. In my case, 10 times wasn't even enough because my child was 1 year old. Then D is for mortgage. Many families have balances on their mortgages. When something happens to you, the bank only cares about the balance, not the equity. So if your family is not in a position to pay the mortgage, they can sell the house just to recover what you owe, and you may lose equity. So you add that as part of your insurable need. And then education is E for children. So that gave me a clear idea of what my insurable need was. And by going through my expenses and how much money I had left, I was able to know what I can afford at the time.
It already sounds like millions of dollars to me.
I was going to say, so this is the dime method, right? D-I-M-E.
Right.
What happens if you don't have a dime to your name? I think people are afraid that when they sit down and do this, they're going to be so far in the red that they're going to feel like it's going to bring it to light. Like people don't balance their checkbooks and do it because they know they don't necessarily have the balance, and seeing it on paper just makes it more real. How do we address that fear?
Right. Yeah. Oh my God.
So fear, I feel like fear is such an, it has no existential value, right? It's such a wasted emotion because whatever you
I love it. That was our last conversation, right? A wasted emotion. Fear is a wasted emotion.
So whatever the fear is, if it's going to happen, it will happen. So do you want it to happen when you're prepared or not? When it comes to, that's the thing, especially when it comes to your finances and your health, you want to know. You want to know so you can tackle it, head on. I get a lot of, so initially, like our community, when we think about insurance, we just think in burial expenses. So when you do the dime and people see that, oh my God, my worth is actually in the millions, oh my God, that's a lot. Well, that's your worth, actually, if you think about it. That's your insurable need. That's your debt. That's your income, 10 times your income. That's your mortgage balance. That's education for your kids. So the fear part, I think we really need to, as one of my friends said to me one time, you got to put on your big girl panties, face the fear, and take care of what you need to take care of. Because if you don't, the anxiety and the stress is only going to get worse, which then leads to more fear. And then you're just in this vicious cycle, versus taking the time out, facing the problem. I will say the first time I had this personal financial strategy done, I felt very vulnerable. I felt very, very vulnerable, but I'm thankful for it because I was able to see myself on paper, and it was like, you can't hide from that. You may lie to other people, but you can't lie to yourself. And that allowed me to take action.
Wow.
The debt, income, mortgage, was that the M?
Yes, mortgage was the M, and education.
Education, so the dime method. So if you're just watching us, we're talking about starting a new year off right, how to get your house in order financially. We're talking about insurance. We're going to be talking about wills. We're going to talk about a lot of key things that people don't like to talk about, especially in the setting of cancer. Ricky, this question is for you. You know, how do we reconcile the fight, right? Nobody wants to be planning for their death while they're yet living and fighting a battle to live. And I get that, but how do you help Resties understand that this is necessary and that it's not giving up the fight to even think about these things?
Well, you know, Mo, you do think about it. Like you do, like I worried about my kids and my fax phone's ringing, but I worried about my kids. I really worried about how Haley was going to get through college. You know what I mean? That was one of my motivators to get better. That was my motivator to fight, because I was worried about paying for my kids' college. So you do think about these things, and you do think about, gosh, what if I'm not here? And I was the breadwinner for my family. So I was thinking, well, who is going to pay the mortgage? And you know, and I had good health insurance and I had, you know, good care, but I worry about people who don't even have good insurance or have debt in the moment. Like I didn't have to pay medical bills. They were covered. I don't know, but I mean, you do fear what will happen if I'm not here. That's one of the things you think about, and it gives you anxiety. I think it did for me at least. And I had to figure out, you know, okay, well, I'm going to channel this energy into like fighting like a girl.
Yeah. Nany, I bet you have to end up counseling a lot of people before you can get down to the business of the business, right? And how does that conversation go? What does that look like for them and for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had many occasions where after the PFS, we put the paper down and it becomes a counseling session. I've had people cry after that. It's a reality that, you know, once you realize, okay, well, I have 3 kids. I have not even thought about their college planning. If I die today, I need to leave at least $1 million or more, and I don't have anything. You know, my debt, student loan debt is, you know, choking me. Then it really becomes a very vulnerable setting. So we talk about it. And like I said, now you know. You didn't know before. And I always share my personal story. You know, I came from the healthcare background. I had 0 financial training when I started the whole process. So if I can gain the knowledge to set up the right things for myself and now help other people, anybody can. You know, I think it's just, you know, you got to invest a little bit of time. We work so hard. We like all this overtime. We're so busy chasing money, but we're losing money by not sitting down and really planning for our financial future, because it's not about how much money you have, but it's all about how much money you keep and the proper planning that you do. When it comes to insurance products, we can never work enough and save what we need in our insurable need. I mean, I guess some people can, maybe the 1%, but when you need multi-million-dollar, you know, your insurable need is in the millions, it takes time for your investments to grow, you know, for you to become self-insured. And therefore, you really want to take advantage of these products that are available. Ricky, to your point earlier, healthcare coverage, you may not have healthcare bills, but while you're sick, paying your healthcare coverage, you still have your rent or mortgage. Your children still, you need groceries, you need your light bill, all of those things needs to be paid, but your healthcare doesn't cover that necessarily. So then you have to be able to find other resources that cover those things. And that's where some of these life insurance living benefits come in that many of us are not aware of.
Well, you know, also, this is like such a touchy subject. You know, just like Black families don't talk about health, they also don't talk about money. Yeah. They don't. We don't talk about it. We weren't taught it by our parents. You know, we see these little white kids who are buying stocks at age 12. Right. They get stock for their birth.
Trust funds and all that stuff, right?
But we don't talk about this stuff. So you're faced with this disease that you haven't talked about. Then you're faced with all these money issues that you haven't talked about. So you're totally unprepared to figure all this out in no time. You have no time. Like, you know, when am I going to do this? So again, like, where do you start? Like, and frankly, you shouldn't start when you get a cancer diagnosis. This needs to start today. What day is it? January 4th?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's do it, people.
That's right. Well, let's talk about some of the consequences of when it doesn't happen, right? Because I think everybody can relate to looking at the news. You know, Aretha Franklin died without a will, or maybe she had one, but then somebody else, might have been Chadwick, might have been. We see stars, we see people who aren't planning for their future beyond, planning for their legacy. Let me say it that way. And what are some of the consequences of that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. As part of that financial needs analysis also is estate planning and retirement planning. Estate planning it's a difficult conversation to have. I would say even myself, having gone through the process with my mom, it's a difficult conversation to have. However, it's a needed conversation. You know, we all have to have these conversations, because what happens is, I've had an example of many examples actually. So my own personal example, I put money in my mother's account. I was traveling. So this is universal. As soon as you pass away, the hospital notifies the state and your assets are frozen.
Right.
So nobody can get into your assets, right? And that's to protect your estate, you know? So when that happens, so I basically put money in her account. I was supposed to get there on Sunday. She passed away on Friday. So I lost that money, which was for her burial expenses, because I knew she was terminally ill. So I had to fund that on a credit card. So that actually is part of that, is why I do what I do. You never want to wait until you're in that position, because you're not thinking straight. You're emotional and you're grieving. So you really want to do these things when everything is fine, hoping that nothing will happen. But if it does, things are taken care of. There's also, so with estate planning, you want to have a will. And a will is a legal document that really expresses what your last wishes are. You know, who do you want to leave your clothes to? Who do you want to leave your jewelry to? Who do you want to give the whatever to? So that there's no confusion. Everybody knows things are there. And even if there is a confusion, but at least there's a document to refer back to as a reference of what your wishes would have been, you know? And also, you know, there are trusts that we can also set up. And trust actually will help us avoid some of the issues that we come about with probate and estate taxes and all of that stuff. So I know the lawyers will give you more details on those things, but just to put the ideas out there, so when people do researches, they'll see what things are available for us. You know, we also
probate.
have.
Can you define that for us real quick?
Yeah. So a trust is it's a legal entity. It's almost like a fictitious entity that takes ownership of my stuff. So if I put my assets in a trust, they belong to the trust. So if something happens to me, and somebody comes after me, they're coming after Nany and not necessarily the trust. So many wealthy people have been able to keep wealth within their families because of these reasons. And it all boils down to financial planning. Financial planning.
Probate?
You can put your house in a trust. You can put your car in a trust, like the things.
Anything.
Yeah. So basically, if I put my house in a trust, I no longer own the house.
Right. So one of the major reasons why you would put your assets in a trust, probate, Dr. Mo was asking earlier, is the process that you go through with the courts.
Okay.
Right. So the moment I die, my family, my assets are frozen. And if I owe anyone, those people have to be paid. Yeah. There are estate taxes that need to be paid because you actually pay for dying in this country. Most people don't know that. So depending on your state, there's a percentage. You have a federal estate tax and a state estate tax. So if my assets are in a trust, I may avoid some of those taxations that are coming into, that are being removed from my estates, and therefore most of it goes to my family instead of, being subject to taxes and different things like that.
So the trust helps you avoid paying taxes.
Well, that's one of the things that it does, but there are other benefits to it as well. If I get sued or different things, there are different trust reasons that you would have your assets in the trust. We hear about children a lot in the trust, right? When you can dictate what the child can do. If I open a trust for my child, I can say, okay, when they're 18 years old, they can have 25% of whatever money I have there. When they're 30 something, they can have a certain, so I can dictate what I want the trust to do. And even though, so same thing with me, if my assets are in a trust, I still have control over it. It just doesn't necessarily belong to me.
Okay,
but I have
so
all over it.
so you have so if you're living and you have a trust, there's somebody else who, well, the trust belongs to itself, but you have control over that trust until you die. And
Right.
then that trust goes to whomever you entrusted it to with the stipulations that you put in. So, so-and-so can only take out X number of dollars per month up until age 21 or beyond, whatever the stipulations are that you put in, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Ooh,
And the trust is being
that's
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say the trust is being managed by, companies that are experts in this, lawyers are drafting the documents. And this conversation, I mean, there will be more details that lawyers can answer, but for our knowledge is really knowing what is available for us. Where do we begin? So
Right.
we begin with knowing that we need to do a will. You don't have to be wealthy to have a will. But
Ooh,
unfortunately,
say that again. Tell more about that.
Right? You don't have to be wealthy to have a will. Actually, everybody's worth something. Even my phone, right now, all of us have a smartphone. So you worth something. If I die today, that phone, I would like that to go to my family instead of somebody else I don't know. So if you got to write things, your clothes, your shoes, your car, all those things are assets. So for many of us, we just assume that, we don't have enough money, I don't need a will, but everybody needs a will. The little $500 you may have in your Bank of America account, that should go to your family, not to the state or somebody else, because you didn't put a beneficiary account, you don't have any wills, people don't know. And also to that, while we're on that conversation, another thing that I feel people really not only set up the wills, the trust, if you qualify for one, and most people do, a lot of time we underestimate our worth. And we're worth a lot. When you do that PFS, you get to see the personal financial strategy, you get to see that you are worth a lot. You also have your healthcare advance directives, where if something was to happen, I had an incident, this was probably like 3 weeks ago. I took my dad to the hospital for a knee infection. The wound doctor sent us to the ER. He ends up being admitted. Well, for a week, he went into kidney failure, completely confused, could not talk, doesn't know where he is. This was the end of December. His bills are due. And I didn't know his password to his phone. I had the password to his phone, but not to his computer. Didn't know how to pay his bills. So even someone like me who's been doing this for years, yes, I have things set up for myself. I have things in writing if something happens, but certain things for other family members that I'm responsible for, I need to get on it, So right. I always tell people, don't feel bad. It's a work in process. It's a work in process, but you got to start somewhere. Set them up, write things down. You don't have to tell people your business. They don't need to know. Your family doesn't need to know you have a will. They don't need to know. You should, but if you feel the need not to tell them, you can set all these things, the beneficiaries on your insurance policies and all of that. They don't need to know, but you put it in writing. Put it in a secure electronic file or somewhere in the safe, in the bank, and let them know, hey, if something happens to me, I have documents here. That's all they need to know.
Right. That's what my dad did. But still, so I got a question, and we have a question in the comments too. So if a person is about to get married and they own a house and they don't want their spouses or spouse-to-be's kids to have access to their house, can I put that in a trust? Can you put that in a trust?
You can. And also, so with marriage, it's a little tricky, right? Depending on the state that you get married at. So I think if you have those questions, I strongly would advise a discussion with a lawyer just to see what a prenup will look like. We also hear, celebrities talking about this, and we don't feel like it's for us, but sometimes you may be a little bit better off than somebody else that you're marrying, and you have children. It will be unfair for your assets to go to your spouse, and your children are left, without what you worked hard for them. So I think when you're getting married to someone, you really want to talk to a lawyer, discuss options about probate, because when it comes to marriage, things then become a little more complicated. Mm-hmm. Depending on the state that you live in. I know in Maryland, if you acquire a house before marriage, anything you acquired before marriage, you get to keep during divorce. But when you die, it's a little tricky when it's death and it's your spouse. So for that, I would recommend talking to an attorney and considering putting things in writing, some agreements. If the person loves you, I don't think it should be a problem.
Right.
Shouldn't be a problem if they love you and they're in it for the right reasons. Those should be easy conversations. He can keep his stuff, you keep your stuff, your children keep your stuff, and then whatever you bring in together, you share.
Wow. Now, can a will can be contested? Can a trust be contested too?
A trust is it's hard to contest a trust. And I mean, usually when you're talking about trust, you're talking about robust lawyers putting their stuff down. So it's difficult to do that. Wills and a will is a legal document. If I have a will and you're my sister, I wrote it down, I signed it and notarized it. You have to make sure it's notarized and you can file it with the courts. When push comes to shove, that might be the last document that the lawyers or the judge is looking at, because that was my, they'll contest it, but whatever my wishes were, most likely that's what they will go with. Unless if I was not, if I was cognitively, okay, and I wasn't coerced into anything, then
Yeah. All right. So we have a question from the comments. What does a person who has cancer diagnosis do if they don't already have life insurance? Can you buy life insurance once you've had cancer? I know I couldn't. Yeah,
that's a great question. It depends on the company, and it also depends on how long you've had the cancer for. I remember I have a friend who was actively getting treatment. So when I called the company, I work with multiple companies, but most of them, when I called, they wanted to reconsider the application at least a year after chemo, radiation, and all of that stuff. Then they'll even consider the application. Then it goes through underwriting. Underwriting is looking at the type of cancer, treatments, if there was any metastasis. Basically depends. It's difficult, but it's possible. There are also other policies. There are certain type of policies that are like final expense policies that don't necessarily go through too much medical underwriting. So you may not get as much like those multi-million-dollar policies, but there is something. I know a company that actually will insure anyone. Doesn't matter, no questions asked. They'll insure you, but the maximum you can get through that particular policy is $25,000.
And the premium might be higher. Somebody put in the chat, they were told they had to wait 5 years and the insurance premium was going to be higher. So it is a concern, and why we need to plan affirmatively, not that anybody plans for cancer, but just in terms of planning for our lives. The things you can put in place, the more things you can do, the better off you'll be. What other things besides life insurance and a will, what are some of the other considerations that people can start thinking about to get their houses in order?
Yeah, some of the things that people can think about is really starting to set up emergency funds. Overall, building a strong financial foundation. People need to, once you're with anything else in life, your house, your relationships, if the foundation is not strong, everything will come crumbling down. So when you talk about a strong financial foundation, we're talking about 4 things. And once you work on those 4 things, you're really sitting pretty. Right? The very first thing, the base, the ground of your house, your financial house, is going to be proper protection. And we talked about proper protection. Proper protection and insurance is different. People think, the insurance, life insurance is expensive, but that's not what proper protection is. Proper protection is, number one, you're getting the right insurance coverage that is suitable and affordable. You're getting living benefits with your policy, like critical illness, terminal illness, long-term care. So while I'm alive and I'm sick, my life insurance policy is actually paying me. That could be income replacement, disability insurances, right? Through your work, either short-term, long-term disability coverage. If you don't have it through work, make sure you have your own through companies that offer them, because you never know, right? Proper protection also includes what we just talked about, estate planning. Make sure your assets are protected. You have your will, trust, advance directives, everything is protected. So that's the first layer of our home. Then the second layer is debt management. You can build wealth when you're paying somebody else all this money every month. All this, interest, compound interest. There's a concept called the rule of 72. And what it is that's how I felt when I heard. I'm like, what? I had never heard of it, but basically it's what the financial institutions use to credit. To credit interest to your, whatever they owe you, you owe, that's how they determine how much interest you pay them, or if you're investing, how much interest you get. And basically, whatever my interest rate is if you divide 72 by that, that's how long it will take to double my debt. So for example, if my credit card is 18%, then 72 divided by 18 is 4. So every 4 years, I'm going to double that money. So once you understand that, you see in how much money you're paying in interest to somebody else. If you look at our homes, by the time you pay a 30-year mortgage, you don't pay 2-3 times what you owe because of the compound interest that's there. So once you understand those things, you become more mindful and you try to avoid debt or try to get out of debt as much as you can so that you're not paying so much money to somebody else. And that's wealth that could be coming to you and your family. Then the next step of our financial house is going to be an emergency fund. Building up an emergency fund. If I lose, in my case, I was minding my business. They called me, hey, your mom is sick, you need to come. 6 months later, I was still there, and that created a lot of financial hardship. So the recommendation is to have at least 3 to 6 months of your income in an emergency fund. That way, if something happens, if you lose a job, it may take an average 3 to 6 months, illnesses and, so on. So when you have that, you don't have that stress and you're not, using credit cards and just being in so much more. Emergencies have a way of getting worse. If you have a little problem, you can't solve it, then that little problem becomes a big problem, right? So building up that emergency fund, learning to be a saver, not a spender, try to save first, pay yourself first. That's a concept that I heard casually, but when I came into the financial arena, it resonated with me. You are more important than anybody else in your family, than any bill that you pay. So at the end of the month, you put yourself as part of your monthly bills, And when I learned that, I that's what I do for the past several years. Every month, something has to go aside for me and my children, because when I lose my job, if something happens, that's what I will go to. Nobody else is, I don't know many people here who's going to pay your mortgage and take care of your kids and all of that. Maybe they'll do it for 1 month, but not continuously. So what you put aside by paying yourself first is what you go to when something happens. And things do happen. Emergencies happen all the time. Right. So then the top of our roof, the roof of our house, is going to be investments. So to recap, we start with proper protection, debt management, emergency fund, and then investments. A lot of us are building our house upside down, where we're putting so much money into investment portfolios that we don't understand. You lose money, then something happens, God forbid you die, your investments have not matured. So you still don't have enough money to cover your insurable need, to take care of your children. Most investment accounts, if you go into it too early, there are penalties, there are fees. Right? So you can do things simultaneously. You don't have to finish one to tackle the other one, but you definitely want to build it step by step as much as you can so that your house is in order. When we talk about investments, we're talking about retirement planning. You need at least 20 times your income before you retire. The reason for that is...
Say that again.
Yeah, you need at least 20 times your income before you retire.
20 times, all right.
20 times. And the reason why I say that, for those of us in healthcare, I've seen patients come in their 80s and 90s, sometimes 100. I mean, they're sharper than I am. They don't have any plans on going anywhere soon, right? Most of the time, these people have outlived their incomes. There are some those who have planned have really good life in their golden years. Their long-term care policies are taking care of them. If you go into their residences, it feels like a hotel. In high school, I graduated with a CNA degree. So while I was in college, I used to work as a CNA. I would do private duty, working with elderly people, companionship, right? So I've been into some assisted living facilities that felt like hotels, golf courses, restaurants, everything. But I've also been in some that are managed by Medicaid, people who don't have money, and it was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking. These are people that
are my calculator, and I'm over here freaking out. Okay,
So the reason for the 20 times your income, Ricky, is that so based on Social Security, anyone born after 1960 right now, their full retirement age is 67, right? If you were born after 1960, your full retirement age is 67. If I retire at 67, chances that I will live until 87 is very high, right? Usually people will live at least 20 years.
My mom is turning 90 in April. My stepdad's going to be 92 in March. I mean,
yeah.
I'm like,
exactly.
I think I'm right there with you, not retiring ever.
Yeah. So then when retirement happens, your income stops, or at least your income that you earn through working stops. Now you generating income for what you planned. So hopefully the goal is that by the time you decide to retire, you've got your 401ks, 403bs, 457s, annuities, cash, or private savings that you've done on your own, Social Security, which also, is a huge part of many people's retirement income as well. And, being able to maximize your Social Security is very important, because most of those other monies you'll run out of, but Social Security is permanent. You get that until you die. So you want to be able to save that and maximize it as much as you can, which is something that I always recommend to my clients as well when we do the analysis. So then there's that retirement planning component. Also, to that 20 times your income, part of that could be long-term care as well. Because as we get older, money that was going towards your mortgage, maybe your kids and so on, is going to go towards you. So the long-term care policies will take care of that if you qualify. So it doesn't necessarily have to be cash or investment that you've done for yourself, but it could come from your long-term care policies as well. But 20 times your income at a minimum is what we need, because I've seen people come in the ER. So I've had 2 stories of retirees that really broke my heart. I was doing a workshop at Oxon Hill Library, and a lady came in. She was 73, retired, and she wanted me to review her insurance policy. That's how we started out. And she told me that she had the policy with her in the car. Then I made a joke. I was like, oh, well, that's interesting, because everybody else I know need a few days to look for their insurance policies, because they never know where it is. People throw it in the internet, right? So I made that joke, and the lady told me, well, that's because I'm homeless. I'm living in my car. And my heart just dropped. And this was in August. My heart completely drops. So she gets Social Security. Her Social Security is about $700 a month. And that's her only retirement income. You can't do much with that. At the time, she still had a car payment. She had to put gas in her car. She has to eat. So, then I had another gentleman who I actually took care of in the ER. He came in with a fracture of his arm. Somebody hit him in the parking lot at Safeway. He was working, pushing the carts at night, and somebody hit him in the parking lot. And he was like 70, he was in his late 70s as well. And I asked, why does he have to do that? And he's like, his Social Security is not enough. So he had to work to supplement his retirement income, because it wasn't enough. So that's why when I talk with people and we do the Social Security analysis, they get to see, well, if this is what you were planning on, it's not enough. So we need to have another plan before you make that decision to retire. And people always joke, I'm never retiring. Well, you will retire. Something will retire you. Maybe not voluntarily, but either an illness could retire you. Your job can politely push you out. Because
say that again. Something will retire you. Even if you don't retire yourself, something will retire you.
It may not be your decision. Yeah, I got that.
And so you want to be in control of that. And retirement planning starts as early as possible. It's never too late, but it's never too early either. The earlier you start, the better. If you start thinking about retirement in your 20s, I remember I was 24, and every time my dad would talk about retirement, I'm like, what is he talking about? Like, but then by 32, that's when I kind of got with the program, and I became
ready.
I know you're
ready, right?
It took having kids to say, okay.
Let me ask you this. Right. Let's talk a little bit about assisted living and retirement homes. And I think a lot of people reach a point where they need to move out of their homes. Right. And they don't understand that in order to be in assisted living or places where you can still have some independence, but also be able to have somebody who can come in and clean your house, or somebody to take out the trash and do all the things that daily life may require of you. And you can live in a place that has that, and maybe has a nurse and has some support and social activity, but that costs money, right? What are some of the costs of assisted living and communities for people who are still wanting to be somewhat independent, but need a little bit more help. Because I find, like in my family, I think we had some loved ones who needed to go into homes. They weren't able to live at home anymore, you know, and that cost was so prohibitive that it became a real touchy subject.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. One thing that I've noticed, I've experienced is that wealthy people don't use their own money. You know,
wealthy people don't use their own money. Say that again.
Don't use their own money.
Yeah, wealthy people don't use their own money. So a lot of time when you see people very comfortable paying for these assisted living facilities, you know, nursing homes, and it's coming from some type of either annuity, long-term care policy, money that they've invested for a long time that's earned a lot of interest over time, you know, but they're not like working, oh, I'm gonna work and my family, my kids are working, they're putting money together to pay for my assisted living every month. So that comes with planning. And we can do it. That's one thing that I've noticed. We can do it. Every race can do it with the proper education. I think the disadvantage that we had as Black people is that we didn't get the right financial education. You know, but once we have that education, we know what's available for us and we take action, we also can be in that position. Our children could be multimillionaires, you know, in their 20s and 30s if we start saving for them when they're 1 year old. You know, I know families, as soon as the child is born, they have a Social Security number. 2 weeks later, accounts are set up for them. So those children, when they get to college, there's no reason why that child will take a student loan. When that child wants to buy a house, there should be a down payment there. So I think we could do it. One way of preventing that for us is by starting early, because for our parents, I feel that it's difficult because they don't have the time. Long-term care policies, once you need it, becomes extremely difficult. I'm shopping around all the time because it breaks my heart to see elderly people going through hardships. So when they call me, I do the best I can. I'm spending all day trying to figure out what I can work out, but it's difficult. I remember recently I had a client who called, or it was a potential client. She found me online and called me from Florida and was looking for a long-term care policy. Her premium would have been about $1,500 a month, just for her to get about $5,000 every month for maybe like 3-5 years. So she could
$1,500 a month policy just to get 500.
And I'm sorry, 5,000 a month.
But still,
because you know her security income, she couldn't afford it. But on the other hand of that, though, when I got my long-term care policy, I was 32. And my long-term care policy is very, very cheap because I'm healthy, I'm young. They don't expect me to use it, right? So it's very cheap when you're younger. And you can also have hybrid policies where like the one I have in particular is a life insurance policy and a long-term care policy. So if I don't use it for long-term care, it's still a life insurance policy that will go to my family eventually. And that's through a permanent life insurance policy. But when we talk about paying for assisted living, nursing homes, and all these homes, it's extremely expensive for us to avoid it, for us to afford to pay out of pocket. So to help us, we need to invest in insurance products. We need to invest in annuities. Annuities are essentially the opposite of life insurance. Life insurance is if I die too early. Annuity is if I live too long. So in an annuity contract, I give the money to the company, they invest my money for a certain time, maybe 20 years or so, then they start paying me. They'll pay me until I die. It's like your own personal pension. You have certain annuity products that also have long-term care benefits to it as well. So when you go into a nursing home or assisted living, you can trigger those balances, those benefits if you have a qualifying event that helps you, that allows you to trigger that. So those are some of the things that people can invest in to really take care of those expenses that are ahead of us.
Okay,
so let me understand. Go ahead, Ricky, you go.
So Nany,
a lot to unpack.
I know. So most people didn't do this stuff when they were 32.
Yeah, we didn't know.
So here they are, like 40 something, 50 something, 60 something, with breast cancer or some kind of illness, right? That's debilitating. What do you do if you didn't do all this stuff when you were young? Like now you're stuck. You may not have life insurance like this person said. You may not have the savings or the annuity or the whatever. Like, what can you do? Like, is there anything you can do now to help yourself? Or are you just screwed?
Yeah, it really becomes difficult because when you think about it, they're companies for profit. Insurance companies are for profit, right? So they have risk assessments, and very few of them will take a risk on someone who they feel may be high risk. It's not right, but for their own bottom line as well. And that's just the reality.
It's almost like getting credit. It's almost like getting like a credit check, right?
Right, exactly, which we'll get into as well.
Oh yeah, we got to bring it around to credit.
Yeah. So my advice to those people will be, first of all, never give up. Don't ever say, oh, I'm never going to get an insurance policy. There are policies there for everyone. Everyone is insurable with certain companies. You may not get what you want, but there's something for you. Okay, that's number one. Yeah. Number two, and also you may have been denied, but because of time and your current healthcare status, your labs, your scans that have been negative for several years and stuff like that, things may have changed. So if you've been denied before, don't say, oh, they denied me. Still apply. The worst thing they could do is deny you again. But at least you can see if you qualify. So try. As far as financial planning is concerned, it's never too late. Today is, they say, whenever you wake up is your morning. So today is the day for you to start. Try to increase your income if you can, either a business or whatever you can do to have more revenue so that you also have that cash handy to take care of yourself. Increase your cash flow when you can, and also try, don't give up on trying to get insurance coverage and things like that. Retirement planning, Social Security is there. Learn when to take advantage of your Social Security. On average, the average family is living at least over $100,000 on the table in Social Security benefits, because most people will claim their Social Security early. You can claim Social Security from 62 to 70. If you claim it at 62, you're only getting 75% of what you're supposed to get. If you wait until your full retirement age, for most of us, that would be 67, you'll get 100% of your benefits that you're supposed to get. If you wait until 70, you'll get 132%. So each year after your full retirement age, it goes up 8%. So most people don't know that. So if you're one of those people where your income is limited, you didn't have things set up and now it's too late, that's another thing that you can save on, not take it in a rush so that you can stretch that money in your golden years.
So I'm going to write this in, don't take your Social Security until you're 70.
67 or 70,
Well, normally wait until at least full retirement age, which is 67 or whatever your full retirement age is. But after 1960, if you were born after 1960, it will be 67. But also talk to someone who can help you know the right time to claim it.
But at age 70, you get 130%.
You get 132% because it goes up every year. After your full retirement age, you get an 8% increase. Most people will say, well, what if I die? Well, what if you live too long?
Wow, I love that. What if I die? What if you live?
Yeah.
Now, so what I hear you saying combats something that I think I have heard for a good portion of my life, which is insurance is a racket. And you're saying insurance is not a racket. Insurance is an investment. Because even if you don't die and you don't need it for death, you can still get it back for life if you have an annuity. And how do people know how to set that up? Is there one-stop shopping for many of these services, or do you need to find somebody for the will and somebody for the investment and somebody for the this and somebody for the that? How do people know where to find the resources?
Yeah, it's really difficult, right? Because different professionals handle a certain different thing. For me, what helped me a lot was really being involved in a campaign that looks at all these things in a holistic way, right? So when you talk to a financial professional, try to find one that has a holistic view, because you're not just your 401k or investments or the stock market or whatever. You're not just your insurance. You're a whole person who has children, who has a house, who has bills, whose income needs to be checked to see how many debt, what discretionary spending they have, what can they afford. I have a lot of people where they're, if you give me $1,000, I'll put it in this investment and you can have this return. Well, do you even know if that person can afford $1,000 to give you? So you got to really sit with the person, look at them in a holistic view, see where they are at that time. That's why that personal financial strategy is so important. And I actually offer them for free. My personal financial strategies are free because I know what it did for me. For me, it opened.
When are you coming to my house?
Yeah, if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be sitting here, because it opened up my eyes and it helped me set up the things that I needed to set up. So that would be my recommendation. Talk to someone who is looking at things in a holistic view, because some people will help you with your finance without even a license, right? Certain people are only licensed in certain areas. There's a lot of certifications and licenses to be gained in the financial industry. You want to talk to someone who is certified, has some licenses to kind of, so you can have proof that they know what they're talking about, and make sure that they're looking at you in a holistic way. If they don't bring it up, you bring it up. Well, what type of insurance is better for me? How much do I need, for my retirement? How much should I be putting aside? We always, a lot of times when I talk to people about retirement, I'm good. I'm good. I'm contributing to my 401k at work or my 403b. Then you ask them, how much are you contributing? Most of the time people are contributing 2%, 3%, 6%. But then if you look at that long term, is that going to be enough of what you need? No, it's not. So once you show them what they need versus what they're doing, then they have a different perspective.
Right. So somebody asked, what if you need your Social Security before you're 67? I said, you're going to get.
If you need it, absolutely. That's the beauty of Social Security, right? You've worked for it, you've earned it, you're entitled to it. So if you need it, then you should take it. And for the majority of the population, people would need the Social Security more early than not. People who have other sources of income have the leverage to say, I'm going to wait until I'm 67, I'm going to wait until I'm 70. But if you don't have that leverage and your retirement income is not enough, the Social Security is that other source of income that is available. At 62, you can tap into your Social Security.
Now, I see someone put in the chat, get a cancer and critical care policy too while you're young. What is a cancer and critical care policy?
Yeah.
That exists?
They do exist. The policy that I mentioned to you, one of the ones that I have is, so you have the life insurance. If something happens, your family get it no matter what. Then you have a certain portion of that you get if you get critical illness. Or you also have indemnity policies that are, if you get a stroke, if you get a heart attack, if you get cancer, then these policies are paying you every month. Insurance, in my opinion, insurance is one of the best investments that we will make. And you will never pay out what you gain from an insurance policy. If you do the math and you look at your monthly premium and how much you pay for that insurance policy versus what you're getting, you will always end up getting more than what you paid out into that policy. It's only expensive.
Is it whole or term? Whole life or term?
So they're both, actually. You have term policies that also have living benefits to it. And and a little clarification there, right? There are two general types of insurance. You have term and you have permanent. Whole life is a type of permanent policy. Whole life is actually the first type of permanent policy. So people always say whole life when they're talking about permanent policies, but whole life, for the majority of time now, whole life is only like final expense policies, where you're not getting a whole lot, or you're not using it, you're not dressing it up with all these other benefits that come with it. So you have whole life, then you have universal life. So then with the universal life policy, you have index universal and a variable universal. So there are different types of, yes, very complicated.
I'm like, whoa. I think we need another day of this.
Very complicated, but a lot of time when people
talk about a chart, an article. I don't mean to cut you off, Nany, but prepare yourself for an article for blackdoctor.org with a chart on the different types of insurance policies, how long they are, when you should start looking at those things, and kind of talk about this a little bit more and break it up into a visual. So some kind of graphic. We're gonna do that article.
We're gonna do that. We're gonna do that. We'll write an article with you.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, with the policies, all policies are not created equal. I don't think there's really a bad policy out there. It really depends on your insurable need, your suitability, and your affordability. You know, so I don't say, oh, term is better than whole life or whole life is better than universal. It all depends on what you need the policy to do. So you have to know what you need the policy to do. And unfortunately, if you don't know, the person selling you the policy has to be able to talk to you about it and give you detailed knowledge of what it is so that you can do the right thing for yourself.
You know what we should do, Mo? Why don't we get 3 or 4 breasties to actually go through this exercise with Nany? I'll be one of them. Then come back in a couple of months and say, okay, this is what I did.
Sign me up because I need it too. So this is great.
Let's do it. Will you do that with us, Nany? And we'll be examples like, okay, how'd you help us? And we'll get somebody young who will do it the right way.
Absolutely.
Get Haley to do it the right way. Okay. Somebody young to do it the right way, because
and each one teach one, because this type of literacy is even different than, we talk a lot about health literacy, right? And understanding disease and understanding wellness. But this literacy is something that I don't think I've ever really been taught. It wasn't a class in school. It wasn't something that anybody filled you in on. So if you didn't get it from your parents or your loved ones or somebody who cared about you, you either had to seek it out on your own, or you're in the dark. Like, wait, what's the difference between term life, whole life, and what is universal? I never even heard of universal, you know? And so we got to make this education more available. Nany, this is amazing.
It's amazing. You learned the hard way. You learned the hard way because your mom was sick.
Absolutely.
Right? So
do you offer like master classes, or do you have any sort of groups where you teach people this sort of education? Do you do any Instagram lives and things? I mean, I know you're on our Facebook Live, but do you do more of this?
I do. I actually do workshops. We have about 7 series of 7 workshops that we do. And they're like college planning, retirement planning, insurance products. So you have an idea of what's out there, what goes into underwriting, financial planning. So there are workshops that we do, and I'll have that information available. One of the instructors of those workshops, so I can take it anywhere. If we need to set up, Zoom classes, we can set that up. If we need to do it in person, I'll be more than happy to. I've really dedicated the past 6, almost 7 years of my life to this, because I see the importance of it. As we talk about it now, right? It's like, it's so important. We really need to know. And for healthcare providers, it's such a shock when we find ourselves in that position, because we're the providers, we're the helpers, we're the ones taking care of everyone. We spent half of our lives in school and learning stuff. So you consider yourself pretty smart and know what you're doing. But then when it comes to financial planning, we're clueless.
No, we don't know. We don't know. So can we do some workshops, your 7 workshops on our Touch Facebook page? We'll do Touch live sessions. Maybe I'll call you later and let's figure out the frequency, but maybe we do 1 a month over the next 7 months, or you tell me how the best way to do it, and we'll do it Facebook Live on our Touch page.
Wow.
I think for compliance reasons, we can set them up where people come on Zoom and we have a private class. For compliance, I don't know if I can do it as a live.
Okay, but we could record it on YouTube or something, right?
We can record it either for compliance reasons, because they're through the company that I work with.
Okay. All right. So we'll figure out how to get the information
however,
out.
we can have the Zoom and people actually will log in. Like we can do every day and have the live classes.
Okay. We can definitely
necessary. Those classes for me, they were life-changing. The first class I attended was the debt management, increasing cash flow and debt management. And through that is how I paid off all my debt. There's strategies that you learn and your mindset changes. So it's all about your mindset. It's all about the knowledge that we have. A lot of time we have the money, we make the money, we just don't know how to manage it.
But, we have patients calling us very frequently about, can you pay my phone bill? And thank God we have a small benevolent fund to help people. Can you pay my transportation to chemo? can you pay like, and so if they're needing $100 or $200, they're needing way more than that. Yeah. It's just, we're solving something for the moment. You know what I mean? So there's some big problems and our hour is up. Gosh, I hate when it goes by so fast, but we got another conversation. We're going to figure out how to extend this conversation to get to them. But how can people reach you if they want to hire you today, like me?
Yes. Absolutely. So I'll make sure, you know, my email and phone numbers are available for you, but my number is 301-275-7274.
301, say it again.
301-275-7274.
You're going to get a lot of calls.
And my email, healthandwealthwithnany@gmail.com, and I'll make that available. Also have Nany Conde at RSSA. That's my social security email. I'll have them available. I don't know if there's maybe we can put it as a comment on this live.
I'm putting it
in the chat. We're putting it in the chat right now.
All right. Okay.
Are you on Instagram or anything like that? Can people follow you?
I am on Instagram, Health and Wealth with Nany. It's HW Nany on Instagram.
HW Nany, okay.
HW Nany on Instagram. On Facebook is my Facebook name, Nany Conde. I mean, my real name, Nany Conde. I have a Facebook page there as well that I post things in. One thing that I wanted to go over real quick is credit, right? Credit is your negotiating power. I know we don't have a lot of time, but building a good credit is really, really important. I think we need to make sure we pay our bills on time, build a good credit history. Don't cancel your credit cards, because then you go down on your credit history if you do that. And we'll get a chance to talk about these things more, but definitely be more mindful of building a good credit, because that's your negotiating power. You'll be able to get a lot of things done easily with good credit than not.
I want to do a separate show on credit, because we got to talk about starting from bad, starting from behind, and really help people understand that process of what do you do if you're already in the hole, because so many people are and they don't know where to begin. And it's like that was great, but I had to do what I needed to do for cancer. I had to do what I needed to do for that divorce, and now they're kind of in a bind. So I really want to talk about how to get people out of some of these sticky financial situations, and just not so much with concrete answers as much as a pathway, you know, because what I heard you say today, you laid a foundation. You said the foundation is protection and debt management, right? You got to get your insurance and make sure you're protected and figure out how to manage your debt. The house is the emergency funds. Maybe that's the debt management too. And then the roof is the investment. Go ahead. You say.
Right. Yeah. So your financial house has 4 things. Proper protection, which will include your insurance, your estate planning, will, trust, and all of that protection. That's all protecting your assets and protecting your life, health insurance, and all of that. Then you have debt management, good credit, getting out of debt, not paying so much interest to somebody else. Then you have emergency fund. Should something happen, you're not getting into even bigger hole, so you can plan for unexpected events that happen. Then eventually the roof of the house is going to be an investment, and making sure that you're putting your money in the right investment portfolios that are suitable for you.
Well, there it is. Listen, we know that this has been relatable. It's been reliable. It has definitely been real. I usually say, we hope it's been. We know this has been relatable, reliable, and so real. Nany, thank you for this information, for helping us start our year with our houses in order. And if it's not, don't worry, don't despair, because you're going to get so much more information through Nany and through Touch. And we are going to, even if you are not a cancer survivor and a breastie, right, this is information that you need to know, because so many of us are caregivers and we know folks going through the through.
Right,
so
right.
We got to help our brothers and our sisters.
Yeah, we'll put it out in our e-blast. We'll put it out there. You guys can email me at Ricky@BBCA. We'll get some way more stuff from Nany, and we'll do some classes, and gosh.
Definitely an article for Black Doctor, and a graphic explaining all this stuff and letting people know how they can find you, and you just get ready, because ma'am.
Absolutely. I love it. I love this stuff. I love it, and thank you for the opportunity to be here and share. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy New Year. Thank you. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Mom.
Thank you. Let's do this again.
Okay. I love it.
I love it.
All right. Well, thanks to our sponsors. Thanks to blackdoctor.org for yet another episode and another year to get it right. And breastie love to each and every one of you. We will see you next Wednesday night, 6 p.m. on blackdoctor.org. The doctor's in.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.